We have a special project today on Woodworking with Wes. We're going to build an accent table, and you're going to want to stick around through this video and watch as we go through, because we have some special doors we're going to build and we have a very special finish that we're going to be putting on at the end. Let's grab our tools and get started. Following our cut list, we ripped all of our material to width and cut it to length on our saw sled. This is alder. We're going to be doing a paint grade piece of furniture, but we're using alder as our hardwood. We're going to be using our Kreg boring machine to drill pocket holes, and then we're going to put our face frames together. Now we have our face frame together. You notice that I used my rail stock as my spacers to get my drawers all correct. And now when we tip it up, face frame, now we're ready to cut panels. Now with our face frame done, it's time to cut our panels. Our panels are going to be 16 inches deep, and we have them listed out to the size. These are our little stretchers. The 4-inch pieces are our stretchers where our drawers grow. So we'll follow our cutout now and cut our panels. With all of our panel stock all cut out, we're now getting ready to assemble. And I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to explain a couple of things as we go through, but mostly I'm just going to have you watch why I assemble. The first thing we'll do is we'll nail on our end panels. This is the floor of our cabinet. I have marked 2 lines here where our uprights for the center will go. These are my end panels. These are my uprights that are in the center. And when I assemble cabinets, I use an 18 gauge 1 3/4 nail to begin my assembly. And what I do is I put my pen, now all of this is 3/4 inch 2-sided white melamine that we're using for the interior of our cabinet. I put myself a few nails in there to hold it into place. And then what really holds my cabinet in place, or really holds the panel in place, is these 1 3/4 wide crown staples. And let me turn it so you can see it. You can see where I've used my 1 3/4 brad nail, and now my 1 1/2, actually 1 3/4 also, large crown staple. And so now my side is stapled in there. I'll do the same to the other side. This construction method I've used for years, and it just really is a good construction method. It's fast, it's easy, it's very simple to do, and I've never had to go back and redo something because my construction method didn't hold up. It just is a good way to assemble cabinets. Now that we have our sides and our bottom, the next thing that we'll assemble is across the top of our cabinet. Now, again, this is the bottom, top up there. We have these 2 4-inch stretchers. There'll be a top stretcher on the front and a top stretcher on the back, and I'll go ahead and get those nailed in now. I now have the box itself I'll assemble. I wanted to show you a few things. As I was nailing the box together, I nailed the outside of the box together, and then I nailed in the 2 upright sections. To space down my top drawer, I just made a little spacer block. And then when I went to space my second block, I did the same thing. I had a spacer block. And the same thing when I went to put my shelves in, I made a couple of spacer blocks so that I could nail my shelves in. And that is always the way I do when I put cabinets together. Whenever possible, I use spacer blocks because that keeps everything even, and it also gives me a support to lay that piece of wood on while I nail it. Now that we have our box together, let's see if our face frame fits. Oh, look at that. Now we're starting to come together. The next thing we have to do, though, before we nail on our face frame, if you'll notice, we have a 3/4 inch panel here. but we have an 1.25 inch style. And so we are going to do a paneled detail on this outside edge by applying some 1/2 inch strips around here. That will bring up our total with 1/2 inch strips and 3/4 inch panel. That will give us our 1.25 inch to be covered by our 1.25 inch style. We talked about putting the paneled end on here. Here are the strips that I'm going to install. We have a narrower one up front, a little bit bigger one in the back, a 3-inch top and bottom. We're going to go ahead and sand this. I filled 2 nail holes that will show, and we're going to sand this surface before we apply the buildup on it. The reason being is this is going to be a painted cabinet, and being a white melamine, that actually makes a really good paint surface, but you have to sand off the factory melamine finish before the paint will adhere to it. So we're going to get that all sanded and apply these, and when we're done, it will look, I went ahead and did the other side so that you could see what it would look like. And this is what our paneled end will look like. All sanded, ready to go now, and ready for the face frame when we put it on. Let me set the face frame up there so you can see what I'm talking about. Our 1.25 inch wide face now covers the seam and the raw edge of our melamine particle board and makes the finished edge. And we'll go ahead and sand this and get it all done once we nail this face on. And we're just going to be face nailing this and sanding it, and then that will complete the actual building of the box part. With our cabinet all put together now and ready for final sand, we've come to our table saw, and we're going to do a table saw shaker style door. We have our stacked dado set up, our stile and rail stock cut to size, and let's just go ahead and make our stile and rail sets and get ready. We are now getting ready to put our door together. Here's our panel, here's our stiles, here's our rails, and we've inserted our little space balls. Our little space balls allowed our solid panel to expand and contract with heat and humidity. So let's go ahead and glue a door up. You don't glue in the panel, you just glue in the ends of the stiles and rails. The panel floats. That's the reason for the little space balls. We just put it together like that. Our panel fits in our grooves that we did. I always assemble a door facing toward me, so you're looking at the back side of the door right now. Bring our clamps in. Okay, we're right there. We clamp that down. I always make sure it's down tight against my clamp too. That helps hold my door flat. And then I start on this end, and we have a little bit of an unevenness here. I'm going to just... There we go. There we go. That's how easy it is. After we took our door out of clamps from gluing it up, we gave it a soft sand around and cleaned it up so that we could get ready to put our edge banding that we made. Now we've cut our edge banding with our 45s on our 45-degree jig. We're going to use a 23 gauge headless pin, and we're going to pin this little edge banding all the way around. Now, we did a door video showing a detailed explanation of how to do this door. I'm going to go ahead and finish it off, but I would like you to go back and look at that door video to get a real good idea of how we did this door. And then we're going to come back and show you how this door goes in this cabinet. Now we've taken a few minutes, and you can see that we have completed the edge banding around all of our drawer faces and our doors. Before we get ready to put this in the cabinet, we have one other thing that we've got to do, actually a couple of other things we've got to do. We've got to build the foot section of our cabinet. So let's go there first. We're getting ready now to do the base plate. We're going to do a base plate with some attached bun feet. I want you to see how we put this together. We'll be putting it together with pocket holes, and we're going to make the corners 45 degrees. We're going to make it a 1/2 inch larger than our cabinet. And our bun feet that we purchased from Amazon are a little longer than we wanted, a little taller. And I'm going to show you how to trim off something round safely. We have our base plate made now. Put a couple of mid stretchers in to give it more stability, and I've sanded it, and I've taken an 1/8 inch round over and I've rounded over top and bottom to give it a little bit of a smooth edge. We're now getting ready to attach the feet, and I just wanted to show you a couple of tricks about how I attach the feet. This will be the part that goes against our plate. This is the part that goes against the floor, and I want them to be as far out in the corner as possible. Now let me see if I can turn this a little better so you can see a little better. That'll work. Okay. I made just a little corner. 2 pieces of wood nailed together, scrap pieces of wood. I'm going to put a little glue on the bottom of this. We are going to nail it to put it into place, but then we're going to put some screws in it to be, you know, nice and tight. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little corner block and I put it around the edge. Now you can see I've marked, I did the same thing upside down, and I marked where the little circle on my foot is. So I'm going to give it 3 nails there. And now my foot is attached and it's right out flush with the corner. I'll do that on all 4 corners now. And then I'm going to talk about the fact that I said these were a little longer than I wanted it to be, and I'm going to show you a trick on how to cut something round. Cut the bottom of this little foot off. This being round would be almost impossible to hold it, even with a good chop saw and a jig. By having it screwed to our faceplate, I can now run the faceplate through the saw with the foot attached and get a nice square cut. Let's do one. Our saw blade, you can see, was very high, and so you have to really be making sure that you're safe. I didn't let go of my piece and I didn't put my hands in the way in order to finish. Now, you'll notice that it didn't cut all the way through our little foot, and so we'll complete the rest of that cut with a little back saw. We now have our base plate all complete, ready to go. We are not going to attach this to the cabinet during the finish process so that we can complete all of the finish around the inside of these little bun feet. But it just looks so nice. This is going to be a very pretty base to our cabinet. We're moving along on our accent piece. We have our doors and drawer faces all built and sanded. We did our base piece with our bun feet. It's ready to go. Our cabinet is all put together and sanded and ready to go. And now we're going to be working on the top. Now, I had cut out my pieces for the top and I glued 2 halves together. I had 5 pieces, so there's 3 pieces here, 2 pieces here, and I'm going to run those through my benchtop planer, and then once we get that done, we'll glue these 2 pieces together, and then we only have just 1 seam to sand out. Now that we've run our pieces through the planer, all we have is just this 1 joint to glue up, and we're just going to put this on our bar clamps, give us a bead of glue and clamp it up. And I've already cut it to length after I ran the pieces through the planer, and I'll make sure that as we glue them together that we are flush on the ends like we're supposed to be. And then this top will just be ready to just sand out, and I think we've got ourselves ready to go to the paint shop. Okay, plenty of glue on there. Make sure we're flush on the ends, and we are. I'm going to start in the middle here. We're going to make sure that our joint is good and flat. This is the only seam we're going to be sanding, so we want to make sure that we're not making ourselves a lot of work. Put my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, come out to this end. By making sure that our seam is flat and tight, we save ourselves a lot of work in the sanding. And especially now that we're all right to size, this will make a quick countertop for our accent table. And there we are. We've got squeeze out right where we need it all along. Wait for that to dry, sand it out, and we're done with everything but the paint shop. We're getting ready now to do that special finish that I talked about. We've sprayed all of our pieces with a white primer to cover up all of our raw wood, and now we're getting ready to spray a tinted lacquer. Now, we're using an ML Campbell tinted lacquer, but you can get tinted lacquer from any of your retail paint providers. This is just one that was available to me, and I know that ML Campbell is kind of hard to come by. But I want you to watch. We have it tinted to a really beautiful blue. I've never shown you a tinted lacquer spray before, and so let's just see how it goes on. It's a beautiful finish, and we've had it tinted to a beautiful blue. Now with our painting all done, before we do our final assembly, we have one more thing to assemble or put together. We have to put together our drawers. I'm going to show you how we're going to do those. We're going to be using 5/8 pre-finished Baltic birch, and we're building them for a 1/2 inch thick side full extension ball bearing guide with a soft close mechanism. Let's go ahead and get one of these put together. I'll just have you watch as I nail these together. They're a very simple drawer. We have done a couple of videos on drawer building, and I'll provide a link to those. But it's just a real simple drawer with a butt joint, no glue, yes, nails, no glue. Here's our basic box, nailed together. This is sides, front and back. I'm going to show you a little trick I do. The bottoms on this are just going to be nailed on because we don't have to worry about making room for a undermount guide mechanism. The bottom will just be nailed on. When I cut my bottoms, I cut my bottom just a 1/16 of an inch less than the size of my drawer box, and I flush the front corner and the side, make it perfectly flush. I'm using a 3/4 inch small crown staple. I go down the side and make sure that I'm flush down the side. And I do the same thing across the front and back, making sure that I'm perfectly flush across the front and back. And what that does is that allows me to square my drawer perfectly square because my bottom is cut perfectly square. And because it's not oversized, I'm allowed to make sure that my edges are flush, and then I don't have any overhang over here, but it's just perfect size. Go back. Fill in my staples. The drawer is done. They turn out perfect. With our drawer all assembled, we're going to take our palm sander and knock off the rough edges. I'm also going to take my handheld router and with an 1/8 inch round over, we'll go back and hand sand this, and we'll have a nice smooth rounded edge on the top and are ready for drawer guides. We are now ready for the final assembly stage of our cabinet. First thing we're going to put on is our bun feet plate. We're going to tip our cabinet to the back and screw it on. Let's do that. Now we're putting our top on. We'll anchor that by some 1¼ inch grabber screws through the cleats that we built into the cabinet when we assembled it. We are now going to install the back using 3/4 inch small crown staples like that. Okay, we have our cabinet together. I went ahead and put all my drawers in, and I set the drawer faces and doors in so you can see how it's going to go. These are going to be inset doors and drawer faces. Right now I just have them setting here. They're not attached. I'm going to take the time necessary. For the doors I'm going to use a no mortise hinge that will be on the outside here. The drawer faces will of course be attached to the drawers, and then we have some nice hardware that goes on. This is a kind of a time-consuming process to make sure all of this is exactly even around. We're going to have the spacing all around. The inset has got to be exactly right and exactly even, and it's a very time-consuming process. I'm not going to make you watch me do that, but I want you to see it when it's all done because it's way cool. So come back when I get this all put together. It's awesome. I wanted to show you how I am putting the drawer faces on. First off, let's talk about the spacing. Every drawer is different, and I have several different pieces here, but we're spacing from the bottom of the drawer face to the bottom of the drawer. Now on the top drawers, it happened to be 1/4 of an inch. Also from the sides, we want to make our sides, we want to be centered. I guess is the best way to put it. So what I did is I cut me a stick and I cut it a little different dimension both ways. It's not a measurement, an exact measurement. What it is, it's more of a feel. By feeling both sides of the drawer as I'm doing this, I can feel that my spacing is the same. And so then, having my spacing from the bottom like it's supposed to be, and now having my spacing center to center, now I can go ahead and attach the drawer face. And what I did is I used a 1-inch small crown staple to go through my 5/8 material into my drawer face. So now my drawer face is attached, but just kind of, not temporarily, but it's attached in a way that when I put it in, let me go ahead and install this. So here's our full extension side guides, our ball bearing guides. We'll slide that in there. You're going to push it all the way to the back and bring it out and make sure the soft close works. There it does. And now we can look at the spacing around our drawer. Now we're really actually pretty good on this. I can see that I maybe need to bring it up a little bit. And what I would do is I would take my rubber hammer and I would adjust until my measurements are equal all the way around. And then I would pull my drawer back out and attach it permanently with 2 small screws going into the stiles on each side. Then our hardware, when it goes on, it also acts as an anchor for that drawer face to the drawer itself. We're getting ready to put our door on, but I wanted to show you how we're going to do these little non-mortise hinges. So let's step over here and I'm going to show you how I drill my holes. Turn our door up on edge here. I have marked in 2.5 inches. You can see a very small mark there at 2.5 inches. That's where I want the top of my hinge to go. This is the outside. The pin goes to the outside of the door because that's the way that works. Okay, we lay our hinge on there so that the pin to the outside of the door. Now we want to make sure that we have a pilot hole, and I'm going to show you a special little bit here. This is called a VIX bit. What it does is it helps you center a pilot hole. In fact, I'm going to put it through here and I'm going to show you as you push against your hinge, a little drill bit comes out and it gives you a little pilot hole. Now it's got a little bit of tension on there, so I'm pulling hard so you can see that little pilot bit. And so when you put your hinge on your door, oops, I got to turn it around here so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm on the wrong side of the door. Hey, there we go. All right, we put it here, lay our hinge right here where we want it, and we hold it, and we take our VIX bit, and we just very gently drill a hole, and that is a perfectly centered pilot hole. We'll do that, and we'll put the hinge on our door. Then we'll do the same thing when we go get ready to put our hinge on our cabinet. We'll position our hinge where we want it, and we'll take our VIX bit and we'll pilot our hole there, and then we know exactly where our screws go. That mounts our door. With our doors and drawers all on and our spacing correct, it's now time to install our hardware. We're going to be using my little homemade hardware jig that I make. We will refer you to a video that shows you how to make the jig and how to use it. But basically what you do is you find the center of your drawer. Our drawer is 11 3/4, so that's 5 5/8. Is that correct? We always measure one way and then measure 5 7/8, excuse me, 5 7/8, and it is 5 7/8. We come back. We line our center line up with the center line that we just marked. We have already drilled our holes, our pilot holes, so we know where they are. Now this takes a little bit bigger bit because I'm going to show you the hardware in a minute here. And we mark our drawer like that. And we're using a cup pull. Our cup pull has two stems that have to fit inside those holes. And so basically our cup pull is going to fit like that. We're going to go ahead and finish drilling our hole all the way through. And then we put our cup pull in. We'll use our anchoring bolts that come from the back side and put those on, and there'll be our hardware installed. Let's come back after we have our hardware installed and see what it looks like all done. Well, what do you think? I think it came out just the way I had hoped that it would. I love the way the black hardware and the shadow lines on the inset drawer faces set off that blue paint. This has been a very challenging piece, but you can do it. I know you can, because you'll learn how on Woodworking with Wes.